Welcome to Women of Resistance. Wars on Gaza are the timestamps that define life itself for its citizens. From one generation to another, wars are the constant that Palestinians like Ghazal Hussam Abu Dalal, a graphic designer and photographer, have been subjected to right from the time of birth. Here is her story.
Palestine's children seem to be the flowers that grow from concrete. Take the story of one young Gazan who was living through a genocide but was actually born at the time of another major upheaval.
أنا غزل حسام أبو دلال، مواليد غزة. انولدت بتاريخ 11/10/2000. التاريخ اللي انولدت فيه كانت انتفاضة، يعني أمي كانت بتولدني وكانت في حرب شغالة، يعني قصف دمار وموت.
Like most Gazans, Ghazal was living a life shaped by family, with that burning desire to learn more, do better, be better.
خريجة تكنولوجيا المعلومات Information Management System في جامعة فلسطين بغزة. أنا جرافيك ديزاينر وفوتوغرافر. أبوي بيشتغل موظف سلطة في غزة، بس متقاعد، يعني ما فيش شغل حاليا. أمي ربة منزل. نحن 3 بنات وولدين. أخي في هولندا، طبعا هو راح تهجير، يعني مش بشكل قانوني. عانى كتير بصعوبات لحتى وصل هولندا عن طريق البحر، يعني وخاطر كتير بحياته من أجل يعني لقمة العيش. فهو تغرب من هو عمره 16 سنة وكان قاصر. حاليا هو بهولندا، ولكن وضعه مش مستقر كتير.
Life for this fiercely proud Palestinian was filled with love, laughter, but also some personal loss.
حياتي في الطفولة في كتير أشياء، يعني ذكريات حلوة فيها. كانوا أهلي يعني مرة بالأسبوع طلعات، أعياد الميلاد. كان في كتير يعني أجواء من السعادة، إنه هيك تشوف العيلة كلها متجمعة. أكثر ذكرى حزينة واجهتها في طفولتي فقدان عمي في 2004، يعني كان عمري 4 سنوات، بس كتير أنا بتذكر معاه ذكريات منيحة. كنت أكتر طفلة مدللة عنده، كانت يعني كسرة، صح إني كنت طفلة بس ذاكرة كتير تفاصيل معه.
As it is the case for the majority of Palestinians, the scars of the occupation are embedded in the DNA of a people forced to endure a life underscored by acts of Israeli occupation and oppression.
أول ما انولدنا أهلي كانوا يحكوا إنه إحنا محاصرين في إشي اسمه احتلال، بس كانوا يحكوا لنا عن أيامهم لما كانوا أطفال، كيف كان الاحتلال مثلا موجود بينهم، كيف كانوا يحزنوهم، كيف كانوا يعذبوهم. فإحنا كنا نعرف نسمع منهم القصص، فلكن إحنا في واقعنا وفي طفولتنا جربنا وشفناه وعشناه طبيعة خوف. في سنة من الحرب إجت، كنا واعيين فيها، صح إنه كنت أنا طفلة، لكن كنت واعي فيها. لما قطعوا الكهرباء، لما بطل في مي، يعني لدرجة إنك تشرب مي ما في، كنا على الشمع عايشين. فمن خلال هذا الإشي بدينا نسأل نعرف طب ليش، طب كيف. كانت في حرب. طبعا كنا قاعدين على السطح أنا وبنات عمي، يعني قاعدين ومتجمعين وبنضحك. أنا لسه بنزل على الشارع اللي صار قصف. طب وين القصف؟ صرت يعني أنا أعيط وهيك، فما بعرف وين. بتعرف وين كان القصف؟ في المكان اللي أنا كنت قاعدة فيه.
It's no surprise the youth of Gaza are some of the most well-educated young people on earth, despite their challenges. But as Ghazal explains, being one of the brightest does not guarantee that you are rewarded for your hard work. But Palestinians are an industrious people.
كنت بتوجيهي مجتهدة وجبت 95%، فحمسني للجامعة أكتر. كنت متخصصة Information Technology، تخصصي كان في إدارة وتكنولوجيا ومالتي ميديا ميكس يعني. فاخترت هذا التخصص لأنه بواكب الحاضر، بواكب التكنولوجيا. فأكثر شيء تخصصت فيه اللي هو الجرافيك ديزاينر والتصوير. كان هو المجال في غزة، إنه لأنه ما كان في وظائف في غزة، فأنا اخترت هذا التخصص لأنه أنت بتقدر إنك تشتغل فريلانسر مع عالم خارجي، بتقدر إنك تشتغل عبر الإنترنت أونلاين. فهذا الإشي الأكثر إنه حمسني إني أفوت في هذا التخصص. كانت فترة الجامعة كتير منيحة، كنت بعتمد عليها بشكل كلي على نفسي. كنت من الأوائل على الدفعة في الجامعة زي ما كنت في المدرسة. طبعا اعتمد بشكل كلي من ناحية رسوم جامعة، من ناحية مواصلات، من ناحية كتب. صح كانوا أهلي بدعموني، بس كنت مركزة على حالي بشكل كبير. كنت بدرس وبشتغل بنفس الوقت. كنت بدرس إنجليش، صح ما كانش كتير في شغل، بس كنت أمشي حالي إني أوفر لنفسي أكمل مسيرتي التعليمية في الجامعة. تخرجت من الجامعة، انتقلت لمرحلة العمل. كنت أشتغل حوالي يعني أكتر من شغل. عشان يعني إنه الواحد يمشي حاله. صح كانت الحياة كتير سعيدة إنه بوجود العيلة والأصدقاء، بس ما كانت بالطريقة إنه يعني ما كانت حياة وردية. كنا رغم إنه في كانت صعوبة إنك تلاقي عمل، لكن كنا نخلق المستحيل عشان نلاقي عمل. ما كانش في فرص عمل. فأنا كنت بشتغل مع شركات برا، وكنت بشتغل هنا دوام. كانت الحياة ممتعة مع الأصدقاء، كل أسبوع بنطلع بعد الشغل، بس ما كانت زي ما بدي. يعني مش هاي أحلامي، مش هاي طموحاتي. قصة السفر كانت شوي صعبة بخصوص الأمور المادية كتير. كانت يعني الحياة هيك شوي فيها صعوبات، بس رغم إنه يعني رغم الصعوبات هاي إحنا قدرنا نكمل فيها.
The day that marked the beginning of the genocide, the 7th of the 10th, 2023, ushered in a bleak new reality for Ghazal, and everyone essentially trapped in a killing field, not knowing if the next moment would be their last.
بعد 7 أكتوبر طبعا اتدمر كل إشي. المكتب اللي كنت فاتحة شركة قبل الحرب، عندي شغل خارجي وكنت بشتغل أونلاين مع شركات برا، كله انهدم. أول أيام الحرب عانينا كتير، ضعف الكهرباء، ما في مياه، المية ملوثة، عتمة كتير، ما في أجهزة إنك تشغل ليدات، كل شيء كان تالف. كانت صعوبة يعني، غير المجاعة، غير الفقر، غير الغلاء بشكل كبير. زحنا من بيتنا، كان يعني كتير الوضع صعب، وطلعونا بالإجبار وطلعنا وتحت الرصاص. يعني طبعا طول الطريق وانت طالع نازح تلاقي الرصاص على السيارة أو على حواليك. يعني في أي لحظة ممكن إنه إحنا نموت. تعرضنا لكتير من الإخلاءات، إنك أنت تكون في منتصف الليل نائم يرنوا عليك إنه اخلي، فتطلع أنت حتى إنك تكون حافي برجليك، ما فيش إشي تطلع ولا إشي معك، حتى ورقك الرسمية ما تاخدها معك. فكنا كتير نتعرض لإخلاءات عشان يقصفوا دور جنبنا، او نظام اللي هي انه من الخوف، انه بس تخويف وما في شيء. يعني كانت كتير الوضع مرعب شوي، لانه في اي لحظه ممكن انك انت تموت. يعني ممكن انك تكون طالع على شغلك او تقف على الشارع، يقصفوا مكان في الشارع انك انت تموت. بدايه الحرب والكهرباء ما في ميه، انه انت بتعاني عبال ما تحصل على ميه، وبتكون شبه ملوثه، بتحصل عليها من مكان بعيد ومكان خطير. في صعوبه بكل شيء، مش متوفر كتير، ونتوفر بكون غالي جدا. كان في مجاعة كتير، كيس الطحين لما انت بدك توفره بمعاناة وبسعر كتير كبير. الغسيل على الايدين، الحياة كانت كتير شوي صعبة. ما فيش اشي، يعني انت لما بدك تشحن جوالك عشان تتواصل مع العالم بتمشي مسافات كبيرة لحتى انك تشحن جوالك بفلوس. كنا ننشر على السطح وناس قبلنا بينشروا، فقصفوا الناس اللي بينشروا. كل يوم نسمع انه حد من اقاربنا مات. مجزرة كبيرة عندنا كانت بالحارة توفى فيها حوالي 30 شخص من عائلتي اقاربي. يعني فانت لما بدك تفكر تطلع من بيتك ما بتعرف شو في برا.
One of the most devastating things about the months-long bombardment of Palestinians inside Gaza was the way it not only caused physical deaths, but tried to kill ambition and hope.
احنا قلنا بالحرب فوق ال 400 يوم، فما يزيد ال 400 يوم. يعني احنا ما عندنا طموح، ما عندنا احلام. يعني انت خلال سنه ونص بس بتفكر ايش بدك تصحى، بتحكيش انا والله بدي اروح اشتغل، كيف بدي اجيب فلوس، كيف بدي اطور من حالي، كيف بدي اصير اشي كبير. لا، بس بتفكر شو بدك تاكل، شو بدك تشرب.
The plight of Palestinians is on the global radar like never before, and those at the very heart of the issue are thankful they're finally being seen. But there is a note of caution.
كنا كتير مبسوطين إنه كيف الدول الغربية متضامنة معنا، بتعمل كتير بروتست في دولهم، كيف بيحتجوا، كيف بتضامنوا معنا، لدرجة إنهم بيبقوا بس من أجلنا. لكن بدأ العالم إنه بآخر فترات إنه يصير سايلنت، يعني ما في حد بتضامن معنا. العالم مل من إنه يضل يشوفنا. إحنا إن أكتر من سنة ونص في الإبادة الجماعية، في القتل، في الموت، في التشريد، في الحصار. الناس متعاطفة معنا، بس ما في ضغط على الدول بشكل كبير إنه توقف هاي الإبادة الجماعية. فإحنا بنطالب من الجميع، من كل الناس، من الشعوب العربية والأجنبية، إنهم يضلهم معنا واقفين، يتابعونا، ما يملوا من مشاهدتنا.
The war has taken so much from every single Palestinian. For Ghazal, even retelling her personal account of loss brings a new sense of horror to the surface.
تاريخ 13/7/2024 صديقتين يعني المقربة أقرب شيء إلي هي استشهدت، يعني صديقة وحيدة. كانت حياتنا قبل الحرب يعني كتير منيحة. كنا يوميا يعني بعد الشغل أطلع معها يوميا. كان إنه مكان هيك مفضل دائما أروح عليه، تحكي اللي عندها وأنا أحكي اللي عندي، شو مضايقنا، كيف الحياة كانت صعبة. كيف كنا نواجه يعني حياتنا. فهي يعني لما استشهدت خلص، فأنا كنت قبلها بساعات مكلمة معها، كانت يعني بتحكي معايا. لما نمت صحيت تاني يوم، اللي هي صاحبتها بعتلي بتقول لي اطمني على ابتسام، رن عليها في عندهم قصف. فبحكي لها كيف عندهم قصف؟ هلا برن عليها. حكت لي خلص ترنيش، يعني هي استشهدت، صارت اشلاء. يعني حتى انه جثتها ما بتقدرش تودعها، يعني ما كانش في جثة اصلا، يعني هي استشهدت صارت اشلاء.
Like so many around her, Ghazal has chosen to manage her own pain by helping those even more in need, those broken and traumatized, sometimes unable to even articulate the horrors they've witnessed, Gaza's children.
خلال هاي الحرب كان عملي تطوعي بشكل مساعدة الناس، مساعدة الأطفال في الترفيه، يعني الترفيه لهم. كنت أحاول أن أطلع أنا من جو البيت، من جو القصف، أطلع أرفع عن الناس، أساعد الناس المحتاجة. كنت يعني أطلع للترفيه، لكن أنا أطلع تتعب نفسيتي لما بشوف وضع الناس، بشوف الأطفال. لكن بنبسط لما بشوف الأطفال بيلعبوا بيضحكوا بنرسم على وجوههم. فكانت هذا أكبر سعادة إلي، إني أنا أكون من ضمن إني أساعد أولاد شعبي وبلدي.
As the world looks to Gaza to see what's next, Ghazal has a message for all of us.
رسالتي لكل العالم، لكل الأحرار، إنه ناشد العالم الحر بالوقوف بجنبنا بالاحتجاج ضد الإبادة الجماعية، بالضغط على حكوماتهم إنه نوقف هاي القتل والتشريد والحصار اللي بيصير لنا، لأنه نحن شعب يعني بحب الحياة، شعب ما بيغلب بالأحرار.
To discuss Ghazal's story, I'm joined in the studio by Farzana Karawalli, a nurse, a social worker, and a holistic therapeutic life coach. Welcome, Farzana.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Farzana, we hear the story of Ghazal. She was born as the bombs are going off, and she's just gone through a genocide, constant bombing going on. How does this change a person in terms of, their resilience and the kind of person that she becomes?
So I want to put it really simply. If we're going to add heat to water, what's going to happen? There's going to be steam, the water's going to boil over, and if it's in a really contained space, there's going to be some kind of combustion, an explosion or something like that, right? So I guess that's the life that they've lived all these years, where there hasn't been any kind of calm. And so because of that, when we look at the meaning of resilience, what we're seeing is the ability to recover, okay, from this trauma, from this, this stress that's been placed upon them. But as a result, resilience cannot just be, you can't just keep picking up and moving on. You've got to have an element of being able to prevent this from happening again, and that's where you get the element of resistance as well. So they kind of work together. Resilience is great, but you must be able to find a way that you don't have to keep picking up.
So what is it that makes them not break? Because, it can go either way. People can become stronger and resilient, and some people can crumble under it. But we don't see any crumbling from any of these Palestinians. What is it that, makes them so strong?
I would primarily say their values, and we know from seeing all these stories that their values are, next to none, and their identity is formed from these values. Values can be inherited. So they might have inherited them from their family members, from their ancestors, but also their own values that they've built from the experiences that they've seen. And values are the strongest thing in life. So when we look at their kind of values, it's also gives them satisfaction, meeting their values. So they've kind of given themselves small milestones to be able to identify with, to appreciate the journey rather than the outcome, regardless if the outcome is death, unfortunately.
Yeah. Because I guess basically they are fighting a just cause, and that makes it all right at the end of the day, whatever happens. What really strikes me also, and we've been talking to many of these women, is the family values that they hold. Like, they all of them without fail talk about the happy childhood memories, love for their parents, appreciating how much their parents have done for them. Now this is, mind you, while bombs are going on, when they have nothing really, if you look at the financial situation, it's not so great. No. How do we pick up some of these values? Because here in the West in particular, Farzana, we really struggle with imparting in our children the value for parents. What makes it so different for them?
So they celebrate the small things. They celebrate life. Life is a celebration for them, an achievement to be able to still be living as such. And even after death, obviously, that's an achievement too. But their celebration of life holds the values. Does that make sense? So, you know, a child is born or somebody's been educated or whatever it might be, the small things in life, this is what I mean by the journey. They're celebrating the journey and not the outcome. And in that, I think we don't have that level of gratitude. We don't have that level of appreciation as we have so much in front of us. And they appreciate the smallest things, you know, that come to them. And so in some ways, they are aligned with their values. They stick to their values. They don't, it's a moral compass. Unfortunately, we're very misaligned in the West from our values, and we're very much easily, we're like petals in the wind.
It's materialism, isn't it? It's a lot of stuff out there. Now, also the other thing that I find very striking is the level of education. You know, without fail, again, all these women are highly educated. Now, as you know, Farzana, this is not really true for all Muslim communities, because in a lot of Muslim communities, there is a problem of women not getting the education. What is this something that is strategic to survive in the occupation? Or, I mean, what other reasons are there that they value education so much?
Knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you understand, the more you're grounded in some ways, right? There's a level of strength within knowledge. And so for them to understand, they need to understand their history. They need to understand their geography. They need to understand sciences to be able to function within a society where they're self-sustained. Does that make sense? There's nobody from outside in difficult times like we've seen just now that are going to help them to sustain life. And so they need that education for survival, but they need that education for strength as well. And again, it goes back to, you know, celebrating these small milestones. And these are all milestones. And education is for life for them.
Absolutely.
You know, continual education.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember one of the other women we had interviewed talking about the occupation of the mind as opposed to the land, and they will not be occupied by the mind even if they are occupied, you know, with the land. Now, just to remind our viewers, you are watching Women of Resistance, where we highlight the plight of women who are subjected to genocide in Gaza. Farzana, the other issue, especially when I hear Ghazal, is the trauma. You know, she talks about this constant threat of death during the 15 months of genocide. You know, she was on the street, she moved, and somebody was killed. There was you know, she was sitting on a balcony, she moved, and there was so it's like constant fear of death. But also she talks about a friend, you know, who not only was martyred, but was obliterated. She didn't have a body to say goodbye to. This trauma, you know, how does it, now that there is a ceasefire, how does she pick up the pieces? How does she continue living with this trauma?
So this is actually the time when the trauma starts to show up. Because during the war, obviously, there was a fight-flight response. Your body literally shuts down and your hormones are out of balance. And so you switch off. You need to function, and that's the main role. You don't need to feel. You just need to continue. And I think this is the worst bit. This is the bit where, you know, slowly, the body starts to become weaker as the emotions start to take a toll. And I guess, again, those values, the values to appreciate life, all those things are the things that are holding them strong to be able to, you know, and valuing relationships, you know, living a legacy of the person that's lost as well. I think all of those things are what really help them during this really difficult time, to be honest.
It's really difficult because in a way it's not even over. It's not like, okay, now everything's fine and they can start healing, because it's constant. We're seeing this in Jenin happen now. But, you know, one of the sentences she says, I think it really, you know, struck me was, we love life. This is her message. We love life. And that should be a default. We all love life, you know, but for Palestinians, it takes on a different meaning.
It does. I guess if we look at what loving life means, you need to have a sense of purpose. You need to have meaningful connection. They have all of this, right? They have a sense of purpose, meaningful connection. They feel fulfilled along their journey. All of these things make life worth living and gives them that sense of purpose. And I think we in the West, we don't appreciate any of this. We don't have meaningful connections. You know, we don't have somebody that we can rely on in such a difficult time. which they do. They are just watching those videos. They are there for each other, even if they don't know them, but they feel the same pain. They have the same bond. They want the same things. And I guess that unites them.
This brings in, I think, role modeling, because when October 7th happened, I think personally, up to then, we used to see Palestinian women or generally Palestinians as these subjugated people, sad, very constantly being oppressed. But what has revealed is the strength, and like you're talking about, the values they hold, and, generationally from one to another, they are so rooted to the land. I mean, it's unbelievable. Despite everything that has happened, we watched how they're moving, in drones from south to north. It's just been days, the ceasefire has just been declared. What is it that keeps them so rooted to the land?
So when you think about what, feeling comfortable, you want to find somewhere where there's nature. You want to be at peace with the trees, the nature, all of that. So that in itself is their space. That's their home, right? The nature. And so if you've lost everything, you still have the land that you live on. Does that make sense? And they know that their houses will go. They will lose their belongings. They will lose everything. But the one thing that will remain is that the ground that they walk on. Does that make sense?
The ground they live on is also not ordinary. This is a holy land, isn't it, for all different faiths? And does that play more into it, the fact that it is such a holy land?
Yes, and this is the mix of values again that we were talking about before, in terms of even religious values and holding these sacred places to in a way that even if, God forbid, which we have seen destruction of many sacred places, that there's a passion to rebuild, to create that environment, that identity again. So identity, values, all the things that we've discussed play a big part in this, in moving forward.
And finally, Farzana, what is our role now? We hear her saying, we appreciate the support we get from the West, but please don't get tired of talking about us. I can see there's some initiative about, providing jobs online, and that's mainly how they make their living because, there is nothing internally. What is our role, both in terms of helping, like you work in the, therapy, to provide therapy for them, provide jobs, but also to keep their story alive? What is our role?
I think firstly we need to look inwardly. I think firstly that there's so much for us to learn. We've discussed about how we live in the West and how, so when we learn about them, we need to change our lives in accordance with that. And that's what solidarity is, I would say. It's not just about going to the marches and speaking out, but it's about this internal change and internal strength that we are building our own values and then we stick by them. So if that means that there are people that are suffering in the world that we need to support, our values should call out for us to be able to do things like that.
So really they have opened up and they've supported us in our consciousness more than what we can do for them, I believe.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Farzana. I appreciate your time. And thank you for watching. We will leave you with the sounds of Palestine by the artist Saif. Goodbye.